Welcome back to another episode of Radical Responsibility Revolution. And today's conversation is one I really have been looking forward to. My guest is Elle Sojourner, a certified life cycle celebrant. Oh, so awesome. Ritual maker, ceremony holder, and fierce advocate for love as a lived practice, not a slogan. Elle does something our modern world has largely forgotten how to do. She creates space for meaning. She brings people together at life's most tender thresholds: births, weddings, losses, transitions, and teaches communities how to show up for one another again, not perfectly, not politely, but honestly and with love. And what struck me most about Elle, it's her absolute energetic presence. There's a steadiness to her, a grounded truth telling that doesn't need to perform, a kind of love that's not nice, but L stands for curiosity, ritual, and the radical act of choosing love, especially when it's uncomfortable. I've been looking forward to this for such a long time. So I'm excited to share you with my audience. I love ritual so much and it has my heart. And I want to talk about what your definition of ritual is before we dive too deeply into what the idea of ceremony is.
So, ritual to me is what we do to make something sacred. It is the process of making something sacred. And one of the things I think is very important about ritual and its authenticity, it is not about religion, spirituality, who has the right to do what, because why. That is all that human construct. And I think it's one of the reasons we moved away from it, is because we spend a lot of energy worrying about who could be part of ritual and why we could have ritual and how we could have ritual. To me, a basic ritual is I open my eyes in the morning and I thank all my guides for protecting me through the night. Hey guys, nothing crazy. That's
Yeah.
ritual. That is
Yeah.
ritual. It's something that I consistently do to create a sacred moment in this life before I jump out of bed and start doing human things and responsibilities. That tiny thing. Hello, guides. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
ritual.
I love that so much because it really gives it permission for everybody. The idea that sacredness is available to everyone. There is not anyone that's exempt from it because that is our connection with our nature. And when we
Yes.
start to separate it out by saying certain rituals are only exclusive to certain people, and I was sharing a moment ago about Lent, we're in Lent. I have a
Yes.
completely different construct of it coming from our natural nature of how we used to be when we were looking at everything as sacred. The
Hmm.
earth was sacred, the crops are sacred, the animals are sacred, and we really appreciate our connection to nature. So I love it that you shared that we can create a ritual. Every single person listening right now can create a ritual. Right? Getting up in the morning and saying, I'm going to be sacred to my body. I'm going to drink water
Yes.
instead of coffee today. That's a ritual. I think it's so important that we define it the way you just did, that it's available to everybody. And when we
Yes.
take those rituals, we can string them together throughout the day because, as you said, it's the sacredness. So, speak about what sacredness means to you because I know what it means to me. And I think a lot of people
Mhm.
still think that it's for some other people. I'm not good enough. But what does
Yeah.
that word even mean?
To make something sacred, if you look at the origins of the word, it can be interpreted as to make sacrifice. But when we hear
Mm,
the word sacrifice, we're often thinking about something that's uncomfortable or punishing, or we are kind of in a scarcity and a lack. To sacrifice is to simply take a moment to do something than the other. So when I think of sacred, when I think of sacrifice, often for me, the sacrifice is to just sit still for a moment and stop doing and be. That can be a sacrifice for me because my nature is very go, 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 go. Sacrifice for somebody else could be connecting with another person.
right.
It could be looking someone else in the eye. You're just simply setting yourself apart from maybe whatever else is happening. It could be people, it could be a thought, it could be an idea. So, sacred is just whatever we're going to sacrifice in this moment to bring ourselves to other. Doesn't have to be really complicated. It doesn't have to hurt necessarily.
And I think that's fascinating because we are in Lent, and I hear people that are of the usual Christian tradition that
Yes.
sacrifice is giving something up, right? And that it truly is that energy that you're talking about, that somehow or another, if I give up something, sacrifice chocolate or sex or whatever it is they're sacrificing, that we are losing part of for me, that's sacrifice in that context is I'm giving up a part of me when the reality is I'm coming closer to my creator.
That.
Right? So what you're
Yes.
doing in that beingness example that you used is I'm sacrificing my humanness more or less for my
Yes.
spirit. And that can
Hmm.
be on so many different levels. So let me take this and put these rituals into a bigger container called ceremony, because
Hmm.
that's what you're doing is bringing people into community, which to me is just so beautiful because it's all that same energy of sacredness.
Hmm.
So talk about what your purpose is with respect to ceremony.
With ceremony, not just me as a celebrant, but I truly believe it was what I was shaped for in this life. It is what all my experiences really taught me. And what I know about ceremony is when you bring people together to witness a moment in another's life that binds your hearts or bonds your hearts in a way that cannot be broken. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. And so when we come into ceremony, you're creating something that AI can't impact. It can't be lost in the hard drive of your computer. Like it's imprinted upon your spirit in a way that you will always be connected to another. And one of the things I think, kind of in our modern experience, and why we're talking about things like the epidemic of loneliness and things of that nature, one of the things that is missing, we don't know how to witness one another. Some of us
Yes.
don't even know that we should be witnessing one another. And so, ceremony is the space where we learn how to witness and we learn why it's important to care. And the reason why the community layer becomes so important is because once you participate, usually your heart will draw you in to want more of that. You'll get more curious about other people, and you'll also get curious about how your needs can be met. And ceremony, again, it doesn't have to be like the big them thous reading from some sort of sacred text and lighting. It doesn't have to be all of that. It can be three people
Yeah.
who just decide this person has had a moment in their life. The hard moments, the wonderful moments, the I don't know, she just decided to get rid of that guy moment. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be such one of the kind of ceremonies I like to do is the lesser noticed sort of moments.
Mhm.
Example, I have a very dear friend who finally decided to, take a job and start moving towards her independence. Kind of not a big deal. You got a job. It wasn't about the job. It was about her seeing herself in a new identity. It was about her opening to her capacity to care for herself and ask for what she needed. It was about her being willing to stretch herself. It was about her establishing a new identity that was outside of whatever anybody else told her she could or could not be. That's a moment for ceremony. Come on, y'all. We're going to go take
Mhm.
her out and we are going to affirm this identity that she's taking on. Yeah, big deal about the job. The bigger thing is we love you and we see you. And so we're going to make a big deal about holding this space. That's ceremony, sitting in the booth at a restaurant, just
Mhm.
speaking life into someone. It truly is.
Yeah. And I don't know why this word is coming up for me
Yeah.
literally so much in the past few days, especially. And it's not as if I'm not aware of the word. It's just that right now I can feel that it's very impactful, and that is witnessing. So we are not doing that as a collective at this
Hmm.
point. We're very performative. Everybody's got the performance thing going on.
Yeah.
Social media just accentuates that. But this witnessing is so key and critical, not just to us, but to the people that we are witnessing. And so I really want to explore that a little bit more because could be people out there that haven't even heard of that notion other than I witness
Yeah.
for Jesus or I witness for that this witnessing of one another. Like the
Yeah.
impact that a woman would have in an environment that you just shared. You know, she's making her own declaration, but that witnessing by another human that connects with that energy,
Hmm.
it's giving me goosebumps even talking about it because it's so powerful. We can do it in all kinds of circumstances. We can do it at weddings. We can do it at bar mitzvahs. We can do it in seminars, right? But it's
Sure.
about that witnessing each other. And when we give each other space, what we're also doing is this thing that most of us have forgotten how to do, even though we have two ears, is listen. So, talk about witnessing as a spiritual ritual because it really truly is. And we begin to witness those beautiful beings around us, we are forever transformed.
The word that comes to mind is namaste. The light within me honors the light within you. That
Wow.
is the whole sum total of witnessing. And so there is an element of vulnerability because
Mhm.
to listen to somebody at that level, you have to be open and heart forward too. That's why we get the performative sort of thing going on. One of the things that just it burns my draws, I don't even have a better expression. It really does, is people who virtue signal through that performative witnessing. And what that looks like is we see it on social media all the time. Look at what a good person I am. I'm helping this person. I'm taking time out of my day to talk to them. No, you're trying to get your vanity metrics up. Let's just call it what it is. And you may be well intentioned, but true witnessing wouldn't require an audience because the point is to connect to whomever you're witnessing, not to be focused on the camera angle and the lighting and the mic so that the people can see you witnessing.
Exactly.
Oh, that
Yeah.
one just it slays me because you could
Hmm.
actually be having the opposite effect. Not only are you not witnessing, but you could actually be bringing harm because in a moment when somebody really needs to be seen as medicine, you not only didn't see them, but you actually recorded yourself potentially neglecting them. Oh, you are jacking up your karma like nobody's business. So that being said, and that's us also standing in judgment. So, but I do have discernment.
Love that
But we
word
do
though.
have discernment, and sometimes
Yes.
discernment is within the spirit. It's so we
Yes.
see these things, we understand the metrics, but we also know how that feels. There's a reason it
Yes.
can feel funny. And so the
Yes.
opposite of that, the medicine of witnessing, is not only to hear a person, but to hear the spaces. I tend to, especially when I'm actually in my celebrant hat formally, I often
Hmm.
will hear what is not said, or I will really be attuned to subtlety. I'll be
Hmm.
attuned to when people in the spaces don't seem fully present. And often I'm really from the energy hygiene perspective, I'm trying to understand what is not allowing them to rest or what is
Hmm.
not allowing them to be held.
Right.
And a lot of times it's because there's not a vulnerability in the people that are witnessing them.
Mm.
That's why I'm so focused on ritual and ceremony being practical, being
Hmm.
grounded, being down
Hmm.
to earth. Who said, what do you do after ceremony? Laundry. That's how grounded ritual and ceremony needs to be.
Right.
I'm going to light my candles and do my woo-ha boo-ga, and then I've got to go and load the dishwasher. That's the real vulnerability of it, as opposed
Hmm.
to when we are kind of in our ego, but we're trying to witness. We're thinking about how other people are looking at us and how other people are
Hmm.
receiving us.
Hmm.
And it just
Hmm.
has to be pretty much everything's okay. If you
Yeah.
need to weep, if you need to hug someone, even in this era of consent, where you can't just touch people when you feel it, I don't judge that because it is true that some people don't have the social intelligence to know how and when to touch appropriately. That's a fact.
Yeah.
But there are times when you just know that hand on the shoulder or that hug, or just a cheek pressed against a cheek. It's just supposed to be there. All of that is witnessing. I've done weddings where I would go and put my arm around the mother of the bride or groom. I am a mother. And I would be not only watching the bride and groom, or bride and bride, groom and groom, I'm also watching the parents go through rite of passage because their
Mhm.
life is eternally changed because for the first time, they are not the sole provider and protector and person accountable for the well-being of this creature that they love so much. And so sometimes I just feel called to witness the parents.
Right.
And funerals, it's the same thing. Sometimes I tend to notice, the immediate loved ones that are getting the well-deserved outpouring of respect, but sometimes we forget the siblings. So we forget the best friends. And in that witnessing, what I will notice is that sometimes people don't know if they have the right to feel as intensely as they feel. And so, as a celebrant, it's my job to notice that and to create that wide open space. Bring all of that. You have every right because you feel it. And then that loops further down into kind of a primordial worthiness wound that is attached to all of this. Worthiness is at the kind of the core of ritual, ceremony, the who, what, when, and how of it.
Yeah. God, there's so much to unpack there. And the idea of, well, first of all, you're just this amazing energy. So when you talk about you being in those spaces, I can literally transport myself into an experience
Mm,
that I've never been with you to know that you are connecting on that energetic level with people because that's where
mhm.
our intuition comes from, right? It's
Yes.
it's an energetic frequency that you feel into. And this is one of the things, one of the lost experiences on this planet, because I believe that we've been so taken over by the masculine energy, which there's nothing wrong with either
Yeah.
one, but there's too much of it. So we lose this connection to the feminine, which is that intuition to
Mhm.
connect with people. And as much as we can connect online as we are doing right now, this whole thing of social media disconnects us from that energy. And you were talking about it from the perspective of people being performative or look at me and all of that. And so, how do you recommend people at this stage of the game? Because people are frankly trial going on about addiction to social media. It's not a
Mhm.
fallacy. It's a true thing that's happening. And I am a recovering crack addict, so I know that the fact is that addiction is real and
Yes, it is.
you only shift it when you fill up your God hole,
Mhm.
which we all have one. It's for our sacredness. So what do you suggest to people? I tell them get offline, but nobody's doing that. So but here's the thing is
The
how do
horror.
you how do you communicate with people that you are around that this feeling that you bring into a room is something that they can take with them all the time. This isn't a one and done.
It's actually funny. I was teaching other celebrants last week.
Mhm.
And one of the things I kept finding myself drawn to was this concept we are the ones. This belief that filling our own spirit, connecting to love is something external to us, is
Mhm.
what is making social media actually so effective at disconnecting us because we believe that that dopamine hit, and let's talk about addiction,
It is.
had those
Mhm.
process addictions. I even things like perfectionism. I'm an adopted kid. I've had all of those kind of risk factors where I'm trying to feel a sense of belonging with things around me. But if you get to the science of it, it's just this dopamine hit.
Yep.
So one of the things that I like to communicate, we are the ones. You are the magic. I am not running this. I just happen to show up and be kind of doing some alchemy.
Yeah.
But every ping of energy that's transferring between every single one of us, all of that is the magic. All of that is
Yeah.
the chemistry. And so, in addiction spaces, when I'm doing healing work, especially when I'm in spaces of masculine and feminine energy balance, masterminds, productivity, things of like that, one of the things I find myself asking people is, what are you really longing for?
Yeah.
Because even with things like social media, texting, I see this in relationships a lot. people who have these relational patterns and romantic love that is it's really addictive. They're
Mhm.
chasing dopamine and they don't really know it's not
Yep.
about the person that they're
Yep.
chasing and a whole other talk show.
Hmm.
But what are you really longing for?
Right.
So like for me to communicate to you, hey, I'm an adopted kid. Belonging is a thing for me. That shows up repeatedly in many facets of my life where I was trying to get some sort of dopamine hit aligned with I'm accepted here, I'm safe
Yep.
here, I'm wanted here. So in ritual and ceremony, of course I love because when I show up, I am wanted there and I'm safe there, but so is everyone else.
Right.
And that's why I believe that adoption was part of my journey. I
Hmm.
had a very specific kind of masterclass in love, as I like to say, around that because it informed me how to see it in others and then how
Hmm.
to, let them come into the space in that way. So I feel less that people should just put down, all of the apps. And what I feel more is lean into it. What's it telling you?
Hmm.
And that tends to, I think, kind of circumvent the shame
Yeah.
and guilt that can come with figuring out how to untangle ourselves from things that we pour into that don't really pour back into us. Because that's really the issue with addiction, even.
Hmm.
And by the way, people do get addicted to ritual and ceremony
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
it pings the energy. It's still a
Yeah.
dopamine hit. So there are times when people are doing ritual and ceremony, especially in the spiritual community around things like abundance and prosperity. I'm like, you just need to go get a job and stop burning money candles. I do divination and tarot and oracle and all these things.
Yeah.
And sometimes people want a reading on, should I stay or should I go? When will I fall in love? And I'm just
Yeah.
kind of like, you might want to kind of work on, some of that self-love because you don't really like yourself. So why are you
Right.
worried about who else would like you? Like
Yeah.
you don't have to ask the cards. Or if somebody is just breadcrumbing another person and they're clearly not adding value to their life, we don't need ritual and ceremony for that. You just need to leave. But there are people who will, because they are addicted to somebody other than themselves,
Yes.
telling them what to do
Yeah.
with their lives. And it's because they
Yeah.
don't trust themselves. They don't trust
Yeah.
themselves because they don't love themselves.
And I love that you broke it down to just it's a dopamine hit because that's really, I believe that the world is addicted to something. We're
Mhm.
all looking for this outside. We're not all, but for a majority of the time, a lot of people are looking for an outside validation for an inside job. And that is really the essence that you just shared is that when you ask somebody, what is it your heart is longing for? It really isn't more TikTok followers. It isn't, that I'm going to be on, massive stages. It could be if you're getting a rush from that, but just to know that these are outside validations. And the whole
Mhm.
idea that, yes, somebody could get addicted to ceremony and ritual if you're not paying attention to your agenda, if you will, because it
Yeah.
is the idea that we are circumventing our true desires, our heart, our soul calling. And as you just said, being adopted, we all have a story. This is I wrote a book called Your Inner Billionaire, just by
Yes.
virtue of the fact that we all have an inner billionaire, not from a bank account standpoint, but that we are just basically abundance incarnate because that's what
Mhm.
nature is. But we all have our stories that we all came in with to
Mhm.
say this is the path that you are going to travel and these are the things that are going to spark you to allow you to be of service to the world. And so I love that your adoption, just to call it out and say this is what's sparking me along the way and creating that essence so that I am of service to the world because that's really all we all came here for. We
Absolutely.
forgot, but we're here to serve, and what is our passion and our purpose in that context. So when you do this and you just said you created or taught new celebrants,
Mm.
right? So what does that look like if somebody wanted to say, well, like I really like what Elle's talking about, I want to do that because I feel compelled. I don't know who's listening and who might have that notion. What would they do to connect with you to learn more about that?
So, first of all, celebrants are certified. A lot of people, I
Okay.
don't think, realize that, like, I didn't just make this up.
I didn't
Celebrants
think so.
are international. There are certifying organizations. I came through Natural Transitions Institute, which I think it's the most robust training that there is in the country. But really, what you're wanting to study is speechcraft. You need to become an author because you have to do a lot of writing. You do a lot of study of rite of passage. And you don't
Mm,
just look at it from like the Christian perspective or what's happening in, the US. We look at it around the world. We look at indigenous communities. And, you kind of get into some of the Jungian, the social and behavioral, it's psychological, it is the dawn of man. What have we always been doing and how have we always done this? That is the stuff of this work that I like. So people can find me at my website. I actually have discovery calls that folks can book online at my
okay.
website. And a lot of people will come to me through that channel wanting to know more about becoming a celebrant. The
Yeah.
training is roughly 18 months to 2 years. And then depending on how you want to be in the space, I've built my company 2018.
Mhm.
But I went into it full time out of the gate because I knew this is like what I wanted to do. So, I mean, when I stayed on the road, just grabbing every ceremony I could, a lot of people become celebrants because they want to celebrate love and do weddings. Some people specifically, they are really, really like gifted in the end of life space and they do funerals. And I mean, I've met some extraordinary people, they were just born understanding this other realm. So celebrants can actually, feature themselves in the funeral space. But then there's another group of us, it's the life cycle folks, where we do kind of what I'm doing as well, which is everything in between. This is the mother blessings and the baby namings. It's the healing. There are a lot of celebrants who are adjacent to religion, but then there's a lot of us who are also deeply in the esoterica. It's basically the work of holding space for
Yeah.
people. And in my space, I'm like everybody's cosmic mama. That's how I think of
Mhm.
myself. I'm reaching stars and moons and I'm in nature and in the universe and I'm in that space, but I'm bringing it back down to us every day. There are other people who they do it from the perspective of a specific religious deity. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of disciplines that all fold into being a celebrant. And so I would encourage people to just get online, give me a discovery call, Google
Yeah.
celebrants, check out Natural Transitions Institute, NTI, they're called, and get the certification, get the training, get going. Because once you get the training, it'll change who you are. That was the part nobody had really informed me of is it's not just an occupation. I don't know a celebrant who their calling is like their being. It's not a job that you just check in and out of. Oh, I buried that person. Let me go home and get snacks. It does not work like that at all.
Not a
And one of the
funeral
things I've been
director.
focused, some jobs are like that. And so it's the part of the work that I think a lot of people overlook. Like they think I'm just jumping on stages and having a great time because I'm doing something that's rooted in love. But it is, I mean, even basic things like I will fast the day of any ceremony. And
Mhm.
I do that so that I can better hear my own guides. I
Right.
also do it though to make sure that I'm attuned to places where we need protection in ritual and
Mhm.
ceremony. That's my own
Okay.
personal ideology. I'll notice where some things need to be adjusted to protect the space. But the reason I fast is just to allow the space to do that energy hygiene. That's just like sometimes I'm just so hungry, especially if I have like 4 days of ceremony. So
I just want to make note that everybody that all of your information will be in the show notes, so they'll be able
yeah,
to contact you through all those channels. But I love this idea of rite of passage because you tipped on or barely touched on a few of them. Births, weddings, funerals, a rite of passage for women. I'm past it now, but menopause is, I think
yes,
we need to have a, you know, a ceremony for women. We do it when
it's a
the bat mitzvah,
croning.
the bar mitzvahs, right?
It's called a croning. She
Crowning. Oh,
becomes a
is it really?
crone. Yes. So I'm obsessed with maiden, mother, and crone rituals.
Ooh, tell me about that because I just learned about crone from Mindy Pelts. So,
I'm obsessed, and I have been for a long time because, we have ways of honoring young women when they come
yes,
into their fertile season. We have
right.
ways of honoring mothers, hopefully. That's a
Oh, yeah.
whole other bag of worms. But croning, what's beautiful about croning is it's not only represented by this perimenopausal, menopausal physical
Right.
transition, but the beautiful part of becoming a crone, I feel like that's when we take our place.
Yes. The wisdom. We get rewired for
Yes,
wisdom. It's
the
so
true
beautiful.
matriarch.
Yes.
And it's being lost. Everybody's talking about what's happening to our bodies, and it's coming from a
Yeah.
scarcity mindset. Oh, she
Hmm.
can't produce anymore, so she's just drying up. Are you insane? Some of the most
Hmm.
powerful women that I've witnessed in my lifetime, they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and more, because in that season, they've seen so much. They've overcome a great deal. People sleep on this kind of sacral energy that women have when you go through cycles of creation and destruction. It can be people, it can be your community, it can be in your job. We all, no matter what our status is as mother or whatever, we all go through cycles of creation and destruction as women. It's what we're born for. Run a couple of those cycles through a human being and see how incredibly powerful and wise she is. Like, clock her emotional control. This is the woman who her discernment teaches her where to fight the battle and where to let nature and the universe levy its consequences. Oh my gosh, the way a crone can hold space, the way a crone has no tolerance for foolishness and systems that don't serve, the way the crones protect the greater good. It is incredibly powerful. And so I feel like the physical aspect of menopause is basically drawing our attention as women to the power that we have come into. And so these ceremonies, the croning ceremonies, where I find them to be powerful when it's other women who are
Hmm.
acknowledging the transition a woman has gone into. But one of the things about a croning ceremony, this is the place where a woman will declare what her next season is going to be. You're not looking at what's past, you're looking at what's coming. The crone season is often where women, for the first time in a long time, have the resources, the privilege, the power, and the ideas of what they truly want for themselves. For some women, it's the first time in their lives they've ever had a say and what they wanted for themselves. That's the power of the crone, and that's one of the reasons why you don't hear about it a lot because it just pisses patriarchy off.
Well, I am just absolutely flabbergasted because I read Lisa Mosconi's book, The Menopause Brain, 3 years ago. And it was the first time that I understood that we as women go through completely rewiring our brain 3 times, right? When we get our cycle, when we, have a baby, and menopause. It's the rewiring at menopause, it's the wisdom rewiring. And
Yes.
they have this whole thing called the grandmother hypothesis, where they have indigenous people that they share we are the wisdom bearers, as you said. We
Yes.
are the matriarchs. And I'm getting goosebumps even saying that. And then to
You.
hear a word that I only just heard from Mindy Peltz's book recently. She aged like a woman, and I didn't really pay too much attention to the crone, but the crone ceremonies, like that is something I would love to even perform myself because it's
Yes.
so important. And I don't know who knows this, but in 10 years, 1/3 of the population is going to be over the age of 65. And so, can you imagine? And there's already a billion women that are in some version of menopause at this point.
Yes.
That energy to me is so powerful, to know
Mhm.
that that wisdom of women is going to be running the planet. I get so excited about that because that's really what that is. So I would love to, have another conversation about croning with you on another
Absolutely.
day, because this is just like I could probably talk about that for.
And it's just, I am grateful to be living in this time in this world
Yeah.
because I think about my mothers and my grandmothers and all the
Hmm.
women who came before me. And it's not infrequent that I will have thoughts about, dear God, it had to be miserable for them.
Oh
The
God, yeah.
season.
Yeah.
I'm in this
Hmm.
season, and
Hmm.
I'm like, I can't believe how many women I came from who didn't get to be powerful, who lived a
Right.
whole life working for others and serving others and dealing with all the things that life bring. And then they get to this space and society basically was snatching the rug out from under them. It's made me look at a lot of things differently, but made me feel very fortunate to be living at this time as a woman.
Very much so. I've been waiting my whole life for this. So I want to just wrap this up a little bit because I feel like the time just went by so fast.
Does.
You're such a joy to talk to. That what is your best wisdom? Because we are talking about wisdom to women today in 2026. Because as you said, this world is shifting and morphing so incredibly fast. And that we, as the wisdom bearers, especially, but that doesn't mean that I listen to podcasts of women that are in their 20, well, 20s, maybe not, but 30s
Mhm.
that feel, I'm thinking, God, how come I didn't have that wisdom when I was 20? Well, because the society didn't promote that at all.
Or
But
you
what
may
is
have
your
had it and you just didn't have a place to share it
share it
because you
exactly?
wouldn't be
Well,
heard.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I've always been a rebel, so I think I probably was trying to push back. What is the best wisdom from the perspective of building ritual, sacredness, community, and ceremony that you could share with women that they all want to take one thing into incorporate into their life for 2026?
I would encourage every single woman before she tries to hold space for anyone else to find ways to hold space for herself and to serve herself. Because until she holds tremendous capacity for ritual and care and the ability to attune to her own needs, which is essential for her own ritual, she's just not going to be as effective for others. But that's not the reason you do it. You don't take care of yourself like an object so that you can go into the world and give yourself away. You take care of
Exactly.
yourself because your own worthiness is
Hmm.
the foundation of everything. It is the space where you keep yourself safe. It is where your intuition is. It is where your wisdom and discernment are. And it is the space in which you find ways to serve the world that fill your cup in tandem. So find ways to have ritual for yourself, to hold space for yourself authentically.
Yeah. And I love that. The love is the part that we all need to practice for ourselves. And the other word you said several times today, and I love this so much as well, is discernment. And we get that discernment, I believe, from our intuition as well. It isn't an analytical, subjective thing. It is a discernment from our soul that says, yes, go here, and no, don't go there. So, just to
Mhm.
wrap this up a little bit more, because I love how you use that word so many times, talk about what that means for you, what discernment looks like.
What it looks like for me now is trusting the niggles, not talking myself intellectually out of why something should or should not be or cannot be, but trusting that there's a benevolent something bigger than myself
Mhm.
and that it loves me so much that it will
Mhm.
talk to me through my spirit, through my soul, through my sacral, through my solar plexus, and that that's a gift. I am an academic by nature. I was just one of those kids who couldn't put a book down. And in that space, I can say there were decades of my life where I had no discernment. I was just all thoughts and
Yeah,
heart.
yeah.
And that was a dangerous way to live. But what I know now is even those challenges, they actually helped me learn that whatever is out there that loves me so much, I'm a reflection of it. And that
Mm.
discernment is evidence of that.
Yeah.
So that's why I throw this out to parents all the time. And I stand on this one. It's a big deal to me. I tell parents do not teach your children to be polite because you are teaching them self betrayal. You teach them please and thank you and hello. And if you are in a circumstance in which your child chooses not to engage another human being, you honor that in them. That is how you teach discernment and intuition from the beginning so that we don't spend decades trying to remember and come back to ourselves. If a child thinks somebody's crazy, Trust them.
Hmm.
They're probably right. Because while we're being influenced by their car and their clothes and their smile and their teeth
Hmm.
and how many
Hmm.
followers they have and their titles and all of this, that child only knows their energy and their
Their energy.
intent. I also trust pets the same way. If my
Yeah,
dog doesn't
exactly.
like someone, I'm not giving you any other explanation except for you need to be gone. I believe my dog. I have a turtle too. That turtle will block people from coming into my home.
Oh my gosh. That's adorable.
So discernment to me is just simply trusting what we know within us without explanation and really normalizing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are nuts
No,
anyway. Be nuts in a way that serves you.
exactly. Oh my gosh. I love that. I think that is a perfect note to end on because my turtle blocks people. Oh, it's been such a delight. I want to have you back on because I think we could just talk for a few more hours and it's just, a
I
45-minute
just
podcast.
adore you.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
That
So
is,
definitely I do want to have you come back because like I said, this is just I don't ask too many people back, but I feel like our hearts are just so, in resonance with one another. Thank you so much for all this wisdom and just for actually giving me an opportunity to learn something that I really didn't understand was that I am a crone, like proudly now
isn't
and
that
I'm
so?
about to go, pump that up. So yeah, so thank you so much and all your stuff will be in the show notes. So once again, thank you so much for being my
Thank
guest.
you. There's a thing. I enjoy you.
Thank you.
Thank you so